A Virginia driver on a Virginia racetrack. It was a rematch of the last race here, only this time the outcome was different. For Denny Hamlin, he returns to victory lane at one of his home state racetracks, and this could not have come at a better time for a driver that was in championship form, but still somewhat struggling. As sprint chase race number 6 has gone into the history books here in Martinsville for the first time in a long time. It was not Jimmie Johnson winning. This time it was Denny Hamlin, but Jimmie Johnson came in second. That's a whole different story. But right now, guys, it's all about Denny Hamlin. He needed a victory in a bad way, Ken Wallace.
Well, the fans have required somebody to beat the 48 of Jimmie Johnson. And, of course, he does. Denny Hamlin answers to all of you. He said, everybody's like, I'm tired of Jimmie Johnson winning. We want somebody to win. You got it. Toyota, Denny Hamlin and Toyota into victory lane, Larry.
But I think the biggest reason Denny Hamlin needed that win is Denny Hamlin has only had 8 DNFs his entire Sprint Cup Series career. 2 of them have been back-to-back weeks, the last 2 races at California 2 weeks ago, at Lowe's last Saturday night. I think they know that the hopes of winning the championship for that 11 team are over. What they can accomplish is exactly what they accomplished today, win races.
You build now for the future, and that's exactly what Denny Hamlin has done. A little win like this will go a long way in terms of momentum, especially on a track this difficult, guys.
Well, you know, I agree with you, Larry. First of all, it's complete devastation for Denny Hamlin over the last couple of weeks. I know it's really worked on him hard. You know, he's running good at Charlotte, and he loses a motor, has some problem. But, Larry, this is big because, you know, he's always said, look, I'm a Virginia boy. He won at Richmond, and you're right, he's not going to win the championship, but he wins here at his home state. He's going to carry 2 big trophies home that will feed his soul and prop his team up, even though they're not going to win this championship because he is a Virginia boy. And I know that means a lot to him.
Let's take a quick look at the highlights. Of course, here on Victory Lane, we have a much more in-depth look for you in just a minute, but here's a quick look at what transpired today on a somewhat overcast day here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. An early battle and a sign of things to come between 2 of the best at this racetrack. Jimmie Johnson came in winning 5 of the last 6, and Denny Hamlin in the 11. Well, statistically, he is one of the best drivers here and at this track, and he is very fired up to win as well. But Jimmie Johnson already has 3 wins in the chase so far. And this was a little bit slower of a pit stop than the number 48 is used to, as this is a green flag stop. And Jimmie Johnson not out as quick as he likes to be out, but nonetheless was contending with Denny Hamlin, number 11, a little bit farther up pit road because of his qualifying position. And there goes Denny Hamlin back out again to lead more laps. Let's take a look at the restart. Now, Denny Hamlin, as the leader, chose time and time again to take the inside, and that was a huge advantage in the first time ever for double file restarts here at the Martinsville half mile. Denny kept jumping out, and they kept having caution after caution after caution. It was already 1 green-white checkered, and under NASCAR rules, you only get 1 shot. Clean finish, but as Johnny Andretti sat at the start-finish line, no yellow flag came out. This is a pretty dangerous and scary situation, but nonetheless, Denny Hamlin comes around. Chad's going, what the heck? Why don't I know caution? I wanted a chance to have a caution there and have another shot at him, but you can't get it. Only 1 shot, and you can see the jubilation on the part of the number 11 crew as they get to victory lane. Let's take a look at your new points. Now, Jimmie Johnson was not able to get the win, but nonetheless, he picked up 28 more points over Mark Martin.
Well, the points are bleeding more and more. We're seeing more and more red. What we have here, we have Mark Martin and Jeff Gordon. That's his teammates, Jimmie Johnson. The only 2 drivers that are within 1 race of Jimmie Johnson with 4 races to go. Stewart, Montoya, Kurt Busch, they're still hanging in there, but it's getting tougher and tougher. And from Newman on back, pretty much they're just trying to accomplish what Denny Hamlin did today, win races before this year's out.
Coming up on NASCAR Victory Lane on Speed, we're going to have the home state winner, Denny Hamlin, come over and talk to us here. And we'll also talk to a lot of the other drivers who figured in as Denny Hamlin celebrates his 3rd win of the season, 2nd in Martinsville.
NASCAR Victory Lane is presented by Travelodge, Recreate, Hibernate. Brought to you in part by Orbitz. Visit Orbitz.com today and save. And by NASCAR Banking, only from Bank of America. Your debit card, your credit card, your driver. Learn more at the Bank of America Banking Center.
Welcome back, everyone, to NASCAR Victory Lane on Speed, coming to you from the Martinsville Speedway, where Virginia native Denny Hamlin has won. Once again, it's his third win this season, second win this year, but this one could not have come at a better time for a team that was struggling to get back in championship form. Let's take you back to the green flag earlier today as they waved it on race number 6 of the chase. This was the halfway mark of the season in the Tums Fast Relief 500 here, and you see we had some very powerful, strong cars up front. Ryan Newman had his 45th pole of his career. And from then, guys, it was game on the short track.
Yeah, as you might notice, we were into a caution very early in the race. The first one came out on lap 6. This is where Matt Kenseth gets inside of Marcos Ambrose.
He gets loose,
Marcos around,
yeah,
and then Robbie Gordon gets gathered up. That was kind of like the wreck of the 7s right there.
It was also a little bit of an accordion effect, and it just shows you how there is not much real estate on this racetrack when you got 43 cars out there. Here's your first ever double file restart at Martinsville.
Exactly, and you look at Mark Martin. Mark Martin's like, whoop, I'm getting down on the inside. That's how important the inside lane is. It is the preferred lane, and Mark Martin makes the best out of it and gets down quickly.
Winner gets the option as to whether he's going to start. I mean, I'm sorry, not winner. The leader gets the option of where he's going to start, whether on the inside or the outside. And here we see Jeff Gordon going by the 39 of Ryan Newman on the inside.
Man that won 7 times here. Jeff Gordon, that 24 car, sat on the outside of the front row, flexed his muscles early.
So everybody was worried at the beginning of the day about Jimmie Johnson. They said, oh my God, he's starting all the way back in 15th. It's one of his lowest starting spots of the entire year, but it did not take long for him to get up there. Here he is battling for 5th.
I think we here at Speed fell for that one. That was ridiculous. He qualified 15th, race fans.
So what?
He was running 3rd, I think, on lap, I believe it was lap 38. Running 3rd on lap 48, I believe. Yeah, no, 45, because that's when the caution does come out.
A lot of moving and shaking going on here. The 09 of Sterling Marlin, the 55 of Michael Waltrip. He goes for a spin.
Yeah, Michael had a flat tire, flat left rear tire, something we saw a lot just like in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race yesterday. They don't run interliners here, and you get together, and it basically just cuts the tire down. This damage here was on pit road under one of those first cautions. Right there, he gets into the back of Dale Earnhardt Jr., the 88 car, as he was leaving pit road.
There is the action, there is the reaction, and here is why it happened. Here comes Denny Hamlin out of his pit stall. He hit Dale Earnhardt Jr., and really it looked at the time, Larry, like the damage was going to be bad for the 11 and not so bad for the number 88, but we all know what happened afterwards.
Yeah, but Mike Ford, the crew chief for Denny Hamlin, decided, you know what, we're not going to give up track position. It all looks good on 11 car. But I'm telling you, they were racing hard all day long.
And this was Martinsville, and here is a battle for the lead. The 48 goes by for his 5 points. Of course, his teammate, Jeff Gordon, says, okay, teammate, get your 5 points.
It took Jimmie Johnson 60 laps to come from 15th to the lead. He has now led a lap in all 6 chase races.
And when you take a look at those two guys battling, you got 13 wins between the two of them. Dale Earnhardt Jr., if it weren't for bad luck, he would have no luck at all.
What he did, brake heat melted the bead on that right front tire, and it just completely went down.
And of course, all the fans are going to say, okay, why was this the only Hendrick car that had, you know, that type of problem? Race fans, these cars are all set up different. Even though they have the same equipment, it's not the same. Now, this is interesting right here. This is a little beating match, and I thought this was going to get bad for a while, Larry.
Well, you know what? After Montoya did this, Jeff Gordon on the air, basically ESPN played it, was raising Cain. I got a real problem when people complain about being raced hard. That's what we're supposed to be doing. It's a short track.
That's why what Earnhardt Ganassi pays Juan Pablo Montoya to do is to go out there and lead laps. Now Juan Pablo wants to give Jimmie Johnson a go.
Well, I have listened to some of Juan Pablo's interviews over the week. He's frustrated. Mark Martin got into the back of him by mistake at Charlotte. And now, you know, Juan's saying, look, I'm tired. I think some of you people have caused me a problem. So he let everybody know here. He let Jeff Gordon know, and he raced the 48 and said, look, get out of my way. I'm faster.
But that 42 car started 21st, and look at old Tony Glover. He likes it because it took Juan Pablo Montoya to lap 142 to get the lead.
All right, more teammate action on the racetrack here as they sit down for a moment. These are two teammates, the 77 of Sam Hornish and the 12 of David Stremme, but they got a little help.
I believe, though, they're going to have a meeting at the shop. Stay tuned, and some later highlights we're going to show you. These two get in each other. Of course, the one car Martin Truex ends up, getting into the back of the 12 and causing a wreck.
Now, more teammate action going on for you, the 11 and the 18. But, Larry, when you look at the 18 on the outside, the real story is where he started and where he's running.
Yeah, he started 41st, and through a lot of strategy by Steve Addington, he worked his way up there. We got into a situation where we had some short runs about the middle portion of the race, and they got off sequence, and that's how they got that track position.
And I just got to say something. That 18 car, you're right, he started 41st. He finishes 4th, race fans. So for people to say that, it is not good to qualify bad at Martinsville, but it is not total, you can still run in the race.
And he made up a hell of a lot of ground on the racetrack there. Here goes another chaser, Kasey Kahne. Not a good chase for him altogether, and it wasn't a good day for him today.
Larry, I got to ask you a question. As a crew chief, do you think these splitters are cutting these left rear tires down?
I think it has a lot to do with it as close as they're racing. There's no question. We're seeing more flat tires than I think we've ever seen here before.
Cross them up. It's halfway, and Denny Hamlin, the Virginia native, is leading at the halfway mark. So as we take a look right now, that's the first half of the race. That is 250 of the 500 laps so far.
Halfway.
And it looks like Denny Hamlin, cross them up. It looks like Denny Hamlin is going to be the man, but it was a lot of Hendrick Motorsports power. Had a lot to say before all this was said and done.
Well, yeah, it looked to me like Chevrolets versus Denny Hamlin, but as he told us, he needed long green runs, and he definitely got that a little bit later on in the race.
Somebody picked a Denny Hamlin to win this morning on NASCAR race day.
I'm not too sure who that was.
Who was your consultant, though?
I consulted with Larry Mack. Hey, Kenny Wallace, send us to break. Tell him we'll be back with more 250 laps more.
Hey, we'll be back with the second half of highlights right after this message.
That was a good job.
You're on speed.
Welcome back, everyone, to NASCAR Victory Lane on Speed. As the garage area starts packing up and breaking down, they're definitely tearing down the engine of that car right there because it ran so well and eventually won the race. When we left you, Denny Hamlin was leading the race after 250 laps at the halfway mark. Let's pick the highlights back up with the second half of this race number 6 of the 2009 chase, and we still had a lot of racing to go.
Here we are, the 20 car of Joey Logano gets in, has a bad angle, and you look, Joey's a great driver. He makes a mistake, and he literally takes out A.J. Allmendinger because he enters Larry at a bad angle.
Yeah, you can't get in the corner that low, not as hard as he was trying to get in there.
Good job by the Biff to make it up front as he's going side by side with the 48.
Yeah, they just stayed out, just trying to get some track positions. Greg Biffle, he struggled all day long. They went a lap down several times. He kept getting a free pass. He was on much older tires than all these other guys he's racing right here.
We still had a whole lot of wrecking going on as you see Jimmie Johnson starting to pull away from the field a little bit. And there we go, a spin for 34 and the 9 of Kasey Kahne, John Andretti on the low side.
And that's what Martinsville's all about. You want the inside. You're saying, okay, buddy, I'm down here. You have to give them the outside. Now, looky here. This is a little controversy here.
Little brake checking
Almost
going on.
Almost looked like the 48 did a little brake check on the restart there. I do know NASCAR looked at that very closely. You see it right there, and see it just stacking up all the way back on that inside line.
If you don't want to get a guy behind you getting a good run on you, give him a little brake job, right, Larry? That way you don't pull out too fast.
Well, what you're trying to do is break the momentum of the guy on the outside of you because he knows he can't beat that leader back to the start-finish line.
Another 9 wreck, Kasey Kahne.
Yeah, and there was 2 drivers that were having this problem that stuck out like a sore thumb. One was Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the 9 car, Larry, just blowing the right fronts out because of, like you said, melting the bead.
I think it's brake heat, and the worse your car's driving, the more brake heat you're going to generate.
Little bumping going on there between David Stremme and Martin Truex Jr.
I'm going to tell you what, you do not make David Stremme mad. He will get you back, and David Stremme felt like
he has shown that a lot this year.
Oh man, he will get you back, and he felt like he was wronged by Martin Truex and paid him back.
Here goes the 48 back by again. The 00 David Rudiman had a good run going on today. Spent a lot of time in the top 10, but not strong enough to hold off Jimmie Johnson.
Well, and on that 11th caution at lap 300, David Rudiman, Tony Stewart, 2 or 3 others actually stayed out on older tires, but this is when we got into some long green runs.
And the long green ones were very good for Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, it took about 55 laps into this run for Denny Hamlin to get by Jimmie Johnson, but as soon as he got a lot of laps on his tires, it's not that he got better, the 48 car got a little worse.
Sometimes it is rare that we see the green flag pit stops. Today we saw some, and they were a great job turned in by the pit crews of the number 11 and also the number 48. Here they go to work.
And don't you know that these crew chiefs, Larry, this is your job. You were a great crew chief. You're holding your breath because you don't want the caution to come out now.
Well, especially if you've got a car as good as Denny Hamlin, because you make a green flag stop here, if you have someone that has stayed out, you're going to go about 2 laps down.
And I noticed an adjustment. They raised the track bar up on the right rear, so that tells me he must have been pushing.
And also a little bit of slowness on the right rear.
They have had rear problems almost all year long.
And that shows you just how competitive this is. That was maybe 2 seconds, maybe 1 second, and that cost a couple of positions.
Well, in fact, Denny Hamlin, after the green flag stops, he had went from just in front of the 48 to 3.5 seconds in front of him once they both made their stops.
Shows you how competitive this is. Here's Denny Hamlin out in the lead again.
And this is real important because if you're going to set up rhythm, you want it when you come in leading like Denny Hamlin, you want to go out leading, you want to get good restarts. Denny Hamlin did not make a mistake on a restart today, not one.
On this racetrack today, Larry, not a lot of love lost here.
No, but I'm going to tell you what, this 42 car, they continue to show that they are championship contenders. If you just give them back, you know, I know if the biggest 2-letter word in racing, if you just give them back what happened to them at Lowe's, they would be right in the thick of this thing right now, another top 5 finish.
And I just want to point out that these are 2 world-class race car drivers. You will not see 2 great drivers doing that incredible battling like that. That was awesome.
Now, this was the restart on lap about 488 with 12 to go, and Denny Hamlin said he got the restart of his career right there on that 48 car. Look how he pulled away once he got the run through 1 and 2.
So Denny Hamlin pulls away, but it's not over yet. This track is very famous for having cautions come out in the last 10 laps.
And here we go again. I mean, I didn't even see anybody getting him. He must have had.
I believe he was going to try to run through there wide open that time.
I mean, you know, I don't know, but this is Scott's speed, and he went down in there, and it looked like his rear brakes locked up because it don't look like anybody got into him.
The last restart on a green-white checker situation. Jimmie Johnson's last chance gets a little nudge from teammate Jeff Gordon, but Denny Hamlin is not to be denied.
Well, the reason you can't mess around on a green-white checkered at Martinsville because you know you may start the race and then go straight back to a caution, and that would end the race.
Interesting situation here. Watch Johnny Andretti as he spins at the start-finish line. Of course, NASCAR's goal is to get a green finish to this one, but here comes the field. There's Johnny Andretti.
And John Andretti really wanted to get his car fouled up. He wanted to spin it around and take off, and he got stuck right there, and everybody was holding their breath. It was nerve-wracking.
Producer Mark just asked us what was John Andretti. He was thinking, oh, crap.
Yeah, that's what he was thinking, dang it. But the guy who was happy about the outcome of this race, no matter what was on the track in front of him, was Virginia native Denny Hamlin, his 3rd win this year and his 2nd win at one of his home state racetracks. He already won at Richmond so far this year. So let's take a look at the finishing order. As you see, we have 7 chase drivers in the top 10.
And I just want to point out this incredible job done by Kyle Busch. Like you said, starting 41st, Larry.
And Jamie McMurray, that 26 car, remember, he's auditioning, trying to find a ride possibly for 2010. Good top 10 for him.
Great run by Jamie McMurray. Also, Kevin Harvick, a great top 10 run for him. They need badly.
And we got to give a shout out to my buddy. We're both about the same age. Bobby Labonte, a good run, shows that he deserves a ride next year.
Matt Kenseth, another top 15 run.
Clint Boyer was a victim of speeding on pit road under those green flag stops. That's the reason he finished so deep in the field.
The number 29 finish for Dale Earnhardt Jr. was again not indicative of what kind of car he had and what he could have done.
No, because when he had that flat, he went 2 laps down and fought and got his way back on the lead lap through virtue of the free pass.
Casey Kane, the chaser, back in 32nd.
And you look at Sam Hornish, I'm going to tell you what, he got into 2 wrecks early, and he was about the first 2 cautions, so Sam had a really rough day.
All right, so that's 31 through 40 as you see the last finishers, if you will. Michael McDowell, Derek Cope, and Travis Quapple in the 37. Now let's take a look at points. Here's where the rubber hits the road because look at Jimmie Johnson's point lead.
Well, again, he finished 2nd, but once again, because Mark Martin finishes back there in 8th, he gains points. He gained 28 points. Honestly, 3 to 4 man race, but you know what? We may see a totally different picture when we're standing here 1 week from this right now at Talladega.
And these points, they loom larger, race fans. Remember, we have less races to run. Now we only have 4 races to run, so 150 points is a huge gap for only 4 races left.
It is time now for our Valvoline Guaranteeing the Win segment of the show, and we're giving it to Denny Hamlin. He said that this was a restart of his life, and we agree. It is guaranteeing the win for Denny Hamlin on a great restart. We'll be back with much more from Martinsville in a moment. Congratulations to Denny Hamlin from NASCAR Banking, only from Bank of America, and only here at the Martinsville half mile as champagne is being sprayed all over the place, because at this point in the season, Denny Hamlin, you know, you guys have had your ups and your downs. Your guys were chasers, but you know, you've had a rough chase so far. This has to be mentally, physically, and in every way, shape, or form feel good to get the victory.
Oh, for sure. Our whole FedEx team has just been it's been a trial chase, I guess you could say, and you know, and able to come back and get a win after the 2 tough weeks that we've had. You know, it definitely makes you feel a little bit better about losing the championship.
Denny, I mean, if you're going to win any races, 2 big wins. I mean, I know I'm a Missouri boy. If I could win at Gateway in St. Louis, would be big. So far, man, a win at Richmond, a win here in Martinsville, Virginia. And you say you have one more race you want to win before it's all over. What
yeah, we got to get Bristol out of the way. That way,
you're spoiled.
I know. That way we get all the Virginia tracks out of the way.
And you had that race won, and you had a fuel pump problem a year ago.
More than once.
More than once. Congratulations on the win here in your home state.
Thank you.
You know, Denny, watching you, it's such a fine line at Martinsville, setting your car up for short runs or long runs, because you get all those cautions. But your car was so good on the long runs, which had to make you a little nervous about 2 cautions in the last 17 laps.
Oh, man, when they said it was the debris caution, I was beating the steering wheel, said, where? You know, but things worked out for us. I mean, our car was just so exceptional. And a lot of it was, you know, we felt like our car wasn't it didn't have a whole lot of power on the bottom end. I felt like guys were really killing us on the bottom end. But the good part about that is it saves your rear tires. So I think that helped us in the long run. And, you know, Mike and the guys just kept adjusting all day and just got better and better every run.
Denny, this is a monumental win because the fans are asking for somebody to outrun Jimmie Johnson.
I wanted to interview somebody different.
We're running out of questions.
I guess you're aware of that. How's it feel to do something that the fans have been begging for?
I had something for him last week, you know, and just didn't come through because, you know, I had an engine problem. California, I was, you know, in P1 when I decided to cut down and wreck, and you know,
you're right.
We've been there. Obviously, their dominance has been a topic, but I mean, they can be beat, but it's just very tough. You know, they've got to be a little bit off their game to really beat them, and everyone else has just got to be right on. It seems like they just have got a little bit bigger window that they can really operate in, and you know, their cars just you know, Chad and Jimmie just got it figured out.
Hey, Denny, somebody from the outside looking in might say, okay, what's the problem? You've been a chase competitor every year you've been in Cup. You're winning races. What is the problem of a couple bad runs? But when you win, I mean, nothing else, nothing second to winning is good enough, right?
Well, I mean, you just expect a lot from yourself. I mean, every year as a race driver, you expect to be better than you were the year before. And, you know, obviously finishing 3rd in my first year in the points set high expectations, and then you know, the tough year in 07, making the chase and then finishing last in the chase was like, you know, what's going on? So I think, you know, just expecting a lot of ourselves, and this is by far the best we've run through the course of a year. You know, we've gotten more wins this year than we have any other year, and our whole FedEx team is just, you know, working hard and bringing good cars to the track.
I'm glad you brought that up, Denny, because you told us in your rookie season that you had 3 opportunities to win a race, and you basically jumped on all 3 opportunities. But you were really getting frustrated because you had many opportunities in 07 and 08 to win races, and you only won 1 per year. Are we getting back to where we were, capitalizing on good race cars?
Yep, absolutely, and we're starting to run, you know, and we're running a lot better too, and competing for race wins on tracks where we couldn't run in the top 15 before. So, you know, when we go to the racetrack each and every weekend with our FedEx team, we expect to win, and Mike doesn't expect anything less. He expects his driver to do the best job possible, and you know, when it all comes together, you see what you see today.
Yeah. Always my time to end up with a fun question. That clock is sentimental to anybody. I mean, I've got 2 of them from Nationwide. Where do you go with the clock now? Your living room or your apartment?
Well,
your mobile home?
Well, I sold
that'd be a little tough, Kenny.
I sold my house, so I need somewhere.
You sold your house?
Yeah, you got an extra room?
Yeah, you can come and stay upstairs at my house.
All right, so I have to do that. I have to be in.
Just bring the clock.
You got 2 clocks, right?
Yeah, 2 now.
Yeah,
he sold his house. The coach was tired of him keeping him up half the night.
I think it's the other way around. The coach is keeping Denny up.
Tonight, I can promise you.
He'll probably enjoy it.
Congratulations on a huge win, man. Way to go. Way to fight till the end. It was a rematch of last time we raced here, only this time it was Denny Hamlin that won instead of Jimmie Johnson. So congratulations to the entire number 11 team. And time is running out to enter Camping Camping World's Destination Recreation Sweepstakes. Enter daily to increase your chances of winning. You could be the lucky winner of a Damon Daybreak Class A motorhome, a Dutchman Freedom Spirit, or Colorado fifth wheel. Compliments of Camping World. Enter online at campingworld.com/racing. Welcome back, everyone, to Martinsville. It's the smallest track on the circuit, but one of the biggest ones when it comes to history. Every good team has to have a good coach, and Joe Gibbs Racing, by the name, has a good coach in Coach Gibbs. Now, when you've seen Denny Hamlin, when you've seen other professional athletes throughout the years go through ups and downs, you know, Denny's had some valleys this year. To see him back up at this peak has to be very satisfying.
Well, it is, and I think the one thing, we had two tough weeks in the chase. We have a wreck leading the race, so I think the point for Denny and our race team was so frustrating for us. Mike Ford's got all the guys we think we're capable of running up front and having a chance to win a championship. But we had 2 bad weeks in a row. That can't happen to you and have a chance. But I was really proud of everybody bouncing back here, because after having something like that happen to you, it shows a lot of courage and determination on their part.
You know, Coach Gibbs, you've always impressed me as a person, but especially as a car owner. And I go back to the Richmond race when your 18 team with Kyle Busch did not make the chase. You had a team over in Victory Lane, it's 11 team, but the first car you went to after that race was Kyle Busch. You go and visit your drivers or teams that had the worst day even before you go to Victory Lane and celebrate, it appears.
Well, I think for me personally, that's where I feel like I should be. You know, when the guys are winning, hey, everybody's happy, things are going great. But you know, when you have 3 cars, you have a real good chance of having some bad days for other guys. And today we had a real good day. Really, I felt like Joey fought around in there and did pretty good. Got that thing up to about 14th. Kyle, this is a tough place for us with the 18 car, and Kyle did a great job all day. So we were happy kind of across the board. But to be truthful, I think that JD and I try and spend most of our time where we're having the toughest time.
Yeah.
Coach, I believe you are truly a leader. It has showed up your whole life. And at California, I want to go back to that track. When Denny had his problem leading, and then he came in the pits and network TV showed the wrecked car. You were there next to Denny. Were you saying anything to him, or were you just being there next to him?
No, I think it's just sometimes it's just being there. There's not much you can say. But I really felt like, you know, JD or I we're always at the racetrack, both of us most of the time. And we like to be with our guys, and particularly when they have a tough time. I think in that one, Denny, he was really distraught. He was really upset. And so I think that was it was just more or less being there.
You know, I just want to comment on that as a race car driver, that's big, because it shows that you're there through thick and thin, where some other people will only be there maybe in a win. So that's awesome.
And Coach, you've been, for one reason or another, involved in this chase with some drivers since its inception. A lot of drivers have told us that this year is the most competitive they have ever seen it. Do you agree?
I do agree. There was a battle back there, if you look at it, and we were in it.
Yeah.
We wound up losing by 15 points or whatever it was. But, I mean, it was legit. I think it was exciting for everybody, discouraging when you don't make it, but obviously thrilling for the guys that did make it. So I think it was the most competitive, and I could see next year being a similar type thing. You know, we're back there with Joey, 19th or 20th. There's real good cars all around us. And I'm trying to encourage Joey and say, hey, Joey, look, you're a rookie, you're out here. Look at the guys you're racing. You're racing for points. Some very high-quality cars with high-quality teams.
You know, Joe, we were talking at the top of the show where we still have 4 races to go, which is a lot of races. Of course, we're headed to Talladega next week. It looks like right now maybe a 3 to 4 man race, realistically, for this championship. But as we were saying, what you guys can do, your 11 and even your 18 and 20, of course, we're trying to build for 2010, but do exactly what this 11 car did today.
Well, and it is. Let me say this, is very, very important for FedEx. You know, it's a huge deal for us. You know, I just talked to Fred. I already talked to he and Mike and Lori, everybody at FedEx. We really appreciate them. They've stuck with us from the very beginning, and we feel like we got one of the best sponsors there. It's huge for them down the stretch. This is a big deal for us. It'll be the same thing for Mars, you know, and Kyle, if we can win a race, and particularly win a race next week, and certainly with Joey and Home Depot. So these are big races down the stretch. Yes, they're in the chase. We're probably not going to have a shot at it, but it's certainly important to win one.
But in the interim, 3 to go, maybe celebrating that Nationwide Series championship.
We're kind of excited about that. I'm not counting anything there. And I know Kyle isn't either, but we're excited about that side of our race team for sure.
Coach, I always like to end with a little bit of tidbit, and I love the ring. Could we please show that on camera? All your Super Bowl
That's some
champions.
serious metal.
I tell people they only come in handy for two things.
Look at that thing.
That's what we call some bling
those
right
all
there.
answers not here anymore?
Can you try to get upgraded?
Look at that. Is that all
That's
of
some
them
serious
in one, or
left side weight.
oh, let me feel it. Oh, wow. So, hey, I was nervous.
Make
Now,
sure you get that back, Coach.
Is that all of them in one, or is that 3 Super Bowl?
That's 91.
1991. Hold on. Race fans, I'm going to put this on so I can say.
So you can see what it's
Look
like.
at there. I wore Coach Joe Gibbs. Hey,
But
that's
you know,
awesome.
something is awkward here. That's the 91 Super Bowl. That's the 98 Daytona 500.
I'd get that in,
A
Larry.
little bit off.
I'd get that in. Hold on. I'd get that in, baby. Where's that?
91,
okay,
Coach. Are we right with Doug Williams?
No, that was 87.
Doug Williams, 87. Okay.
That's awesome.
This was ripping.
Ripping, that's right. All right, Ripping and Riggins.
We can't do this without showing that. That's pretty awesome.
That's pretty
It is
neat.
awesome.
Coach, congratulations on a great win and good luck for the rest of the
Thank
chase.
you, man. The Lord bless us with a great day. We're going to go have some fun and celebrate it.
Absolutely. You deserve it, and this team has a very bright future ahead of them with these 3 very young and very good drivers. Now, tonight, we want you to watch every show on Speed, but we know you can't. But if you don't miss one, don't miss this one. It's Dave Despain on assignment. Tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, he'll talk all about the history of Talladega, including the first race. Don't miss it. Welcome back, everybody. Chase race number 6 is in the history books. And while you're talking about history, no one has done it in recent history here at Martinsville like Jimmie Johnson. He came into today's race winning 5 of the last 6 at this track. 5 of the last 6 and 6 overall for Jimmie Johnson here. But it was not to be for Johnson today. Still, he had a huge points day and came home second. Let's go to Bob Dillner.
Jimmie Johnson, always the man here at Martinsville, but today, Jimmie, just come up just a little bit short.
Yeah, we had a good race car. Those last couple runs, the 11 really showed his strength, and it was good. There's just no way around it. We were the second best car there at the end, and I'm glad we finished in second with those restarts starting on the outside. Man, I was nervous about that stuff, and with 5 to go, we had a caution. I'm like, man, can't we just finish this thing up? I don't want to go through this all over again. But great day, great points day. We raced hard, we did all we could, and came home second.
Double file restarts, first time here at Martinsville. How difficult was it?
It was better than I anticipated, but it still was really, really tough. You don't have the aero effect here to really upset the car, but at the same time, you're not going fast enough, so guys aren't afraid to lay the bumper to you. So we didn't have the aero loose, but you had somebody leaning on you and pushing and shoving. But it went better than I expected.
Here's what I want to know. Every race so far in the chase, in the top 10, but next week is Talladega. Are you nervous?
Oh, yeah. I've been trying to forget about Talladega, and I can't because it's next weekend. I have no idea what we can do, how we can avoid problems. It's like being in Vegas. Just hope that I hit 3 7s and things work out.
I guess you could say it's a crapshoot next weekend at the restrictor plate track.
Yeah, it always is. That's a wild card, but we also had a pretty wild race here today with Jimmie Johnson coming from 15th to 2nd. You know, Larry, he picked up 28 points, so you saw a little bit of frustration from those guys that they didn't win, but still, nonetheless, they come away with a lot more insurance going into Talladega.
Well, I think now we're finally getting to the point that they're starting to really look at the big picture. I saw it in Chad Canals' interview when they had that next to that last caution. He said, I hated to see that caution. We were more than happy to walk out of here and finish second because he was a little worried about that 42 car, I think, on those restarts, especially with them being on the outside. So I think now we're starting to see them look a little more at that big picture, which is that Sprint Cup, their 4th Sprint Cup, I might add.
Yeah, and I like what you said because I believe that Jimmie Johnson, Chad Canals are going, okay, we want to win all the races, but if we can't, let's minimize the damage. So second, okay, that's pretty good because there's only 4 races to go. I really think that's something that cannot be overlooked. Only 4 races left. Now, last year at Talladega, they went down there. I drove for Michael Waltrip in the 00 car. I run the whole race, Larry, and I'm with Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson finishes 9th. I finished 12th. I think that's what Jimmie needs to do. I think he should use that same strategy again, in my opinion. I think he should run in the back, and then I think he should charge at the end. Why? To win a championship. Sometimes you got to let your pride go. Yes, he wants to be up front, but you know they're going to wreck.
Yeah, just remember, you can run, but you can't hide there. Carl Edwards ran 35th for 170 laps in the spring and almost ended up in the grandstands on the last
And
lap.
then he had to do the Ricky Bobby and run across the start-finish line. I know that's not what Jimmie Johnson wants to do, because we have one more big wild card left and 4 races to go before potential history for the number 48 team. Saturday on Speed, with only 4 races remaining in the championship fight. Don't miss the world's toughest trucks as they hit the high banks of Talladega. The NASCAR Camping World Truck Series live from Talladega, Saturday at 3:30 Eastern. NASCAR on Speed. We suggest you be there. You don't want to miss the radioactive feature on This Week in NASCAR. This is where you get a unique race experience with the best footage and radio conversations available. NASCAR is full of drama, tension, and incitement, and Mr. Excitement for that matter, that you don't want to miss. Catch This Week in NASCAR Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Speed. Please be there. Now, Juan Pablo, once again, was there at the end of this race. Take away the Lowe's Motor Speedway race, and he'd be in the top 5 in every race in the chase. But still, this had to be a good break from last week for Juan Pablo. Let's go back to Bob Dillner.
Another great run for Juan Pablo Montoya, this time coming on the short track. The paperclip here at Martinsville. Tell me about today.
It's great. You know, you look at my average, this is my best racetrack for average, and we only have 1 top 10 in 6 races or something. So it's kind of crazy. We had a great race car today. We were fighting all day trying to put the 4x trying to put the power down, and we couldn't, and we ended up getting too tight in the center and could never fix the off. But it's okay. We learned from it. It's great to see how well prepared our team is every time we come into a racetrack. It's really nice to see everybody in this Target team doing that.
You know, Juan, you take a look, middle part of the race, I thought you and Jimmie were going to be the ones to come down and decide this one. It looked like maybe late in the race the car just went a little bit more haywire.
Yeah, we lost the car a little bit. And I remember the 11 when he led for a while in front of us, he had older tires and he could still keep us, behind us. We were behind him and we couldn't do anything with him. And he was tough.
All right, Juan Pablo Montoya with another great run, another top 5, the only one he hasn't finished in the top 5 last week.
Bob, that's right. Juan Pablo Montoya has been the picture of consistency. Again, take away that one race. But you know what? Whatever happens to this team, I think they got to look back on this year and say it was just so successful, because let's not forget that about this time last year, rumors were circling around the garage that there would be no Earnhardt racing, there would be no Ganassi racing.
Well, he's the franchise driver, but Larry, I got to say, I mean, for him to have one bad race and fall back to 9th, now he's back up to 5th, that's just scary that he has one bad race and that happens.
Well, and I like the way they're racing right now. I love the way they've raced all year long. They raced the system the first 26 races. There was a lot of times he maybe could have bettered his finish 1 or 2 positions, but he was thinking about making the chase. That's exactly what they did. And honestly, they had a top 5 car, easily had a top 5 car last week at Lowe's. And as you said, had it not been for that restart there, about halfway through that race, he'd be real close up there in the top 5.
And I just want to make the point that I don't want to hear anybody saying that we need to change the points. If you take Jimmie Johnson's incredible season out of this, Larry, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, I mean, if you just take Jimmie Johnson out of it, the points race is incredible. So I think it's an incredible points system, and I think it's a good show.
And I think that's the reason that 48 car is nervous about Talladega, because one hiccup there, like we saw last year with the big one early in the race, we got a whole new points battle.
Jimmie Johnson has a 118-point lead right now, but let's not forget that one race can potentially cost you 161. When you dream, do you dream in speed? Introducing the Speed Dream Ride. You'll see new shows, old favorites, and have the chance to win an experience you never dreamed possible. The Speed Dream Ride is coming soon, presented by Castrol Edge. Find out more at speeddream.com.
NASCAR Victory Lane is presented by Travelodge, Recreate, Hibernate, and brought to you in part by Camping World's Destination Recreation Sweepstakes. Log on to campingworld.com/racing. This is the last week to enter for weekly giveaways. This week, win one of 5 Honda generators.
Next weekend on Speed, NASCAR treks to the home of Larry McReynolds, Talladega, for some high-banked Halloween excitement, and nobody puts you in the middle of all the action like Speed. Coverage begins Friday at 1:30 Eastern with NASCAR Live, a special Halloween edition of Trackside on Saturday night. And you know what? That's a spooky track because of the burial ground, right, Larry?
It is, and Halloween, Talladega Super Speedway, a special edition of Trackside. All I can say is, oh boy,
that scares me.
There's a runway underneath that racetrack too.
That scares me too.
Yes.
A runway underneath the track.
Well, you know, it goes through the track, so it's under it now.
All right. Now, there are always two sides to every story, especially after a race. It just so happened at the end of this race, the two guys who were gunning for a nationwide series championship got into each other, and of course, each one has a different side of the story. Let's start out with Kyle Busch and Bob Dillner.
Kyle Busch, not strong all day, but strong when it counted. Your car seemed to be a handful from time to time, getting beat up out there as well, but come home with a good finish, and it was exciting there at the end.
Yeah, it was. You know, the tire strategy worked out right for us. You know, we were able to work on our car every stop and make a lot of changes and try to make it better and everything. And so, fortunately, we're on the right strategy with tires. We came in, we got 2 with 18 to go, and we made up time on those guys. So that sort of seemed to that saved our day. You know, otherwise we would have been fighting back there for about 12th to 15th. So glad we came and did what we did in order to get up there.
You know, looking at the race, you know, middle part of the race, having some handling issues, but also getting beat up a little bit. Is it a deal where it's like in football, there's unnecessary roughness, or is it just Martinsville, Kyle?
Well, it's Martinsville, but sometimes it's unnecessary roughness. I mean, I got under the 99 car one time and backed out, let him go, and got back to him 5 laps later and passed him. You know, he got to me, drove his nose in there, and I came down a little bit, but he kept it in there and just drilled me. And then drilled me again down the straightaway. And then, so I tried to pay back a little bit and let him know I didn't appreciate it and hit him about the center of the corner. Wasn't going to screw him up, but it was just hitting him in the back end. And then he let me go and then tried to dump me getting into the corner. So, whatever. I mean, it's just stupid, but it's Martinsville.
I don't know what his problem was, but you know, we can play however he wants, and you know, I think we worked it out though. You know. I got him, he got me, I got him back, and then we raced fine together. So we'll just move on. It's Martinsville. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, sometimes that's the way it goes here. Carl Edwards tends to leave this track angry at times.
I'm going to challenge you on something you said before those interviews.
Yes, sir.
There's actually 3 sides to every story. Kyle Busch's, Carl Edwards, and more than likely the absolute truth.
NASCAR's side of it.
And the very last replay you seen there was Carl topping it off with a bad day. Looked like Carl was going to finish 10th. He got in a little hot, had to get on the brakes, or else he was going to hit Kevin Harvick and end up dumping in the wall and lost about 10 spots.
With the weekend he'd been having, a top 10 would have been unbelievable for that group.
So now, in the shadows of East Aboga, Alabama, we head to Talladega, the high banks and the high speeds. And like Larry Mack always tells us, you want to leave your emotions at the door when you go to
But take your quarter panel with you.
Take a sheet metal. Yeah, we got some bent-up sheet metal here, a few bent-up tempers, but we're heading to Talladega. Don't forget the NASCAR Race Up, Monday through Thursday, 7:30 Eastern, only on Speed. Let's look in the rearview mirror.
Not unusual to be loved by anyone.
Take the win. Johnson second.